Now, all right, of course. All right, good evening, everyone. We want to welcome you to our Fresh Start Parent Summit. Just to give you some information about how we got started, we have four adopted schools across the city, and we sent out a needs survey to ask them how can we best support you guys? How can we best support the scholars while we are learning virtually? And overwhelmingly, the schools and parents have said back, help me at home with my kids. Help us as educators. Give us some tips and guidance on how we can best serve our students learning virtually. So that is what gave birth to our Fresh Start Parent Summit. We start to have it in January as most students are going back to school. Um, Online and some in person, but just to get some information about how we can best support them either way. Um, so I'm going to yield the floor to Brother Shabazz, who will give like a brief introduction to Miss Catherine Lewis, who is our speaker tonight, and then we will get started right after that.
Yes, I am honored to present Catherine Lewis, who is the owner of a company, Math Solutions. She is a teacher in Alexandria, Virginia. She's worked with various school systems across the nation. She understands the trials and shortcomings that stood in the way of many students not excelling in the functional areas of math. So she began a company with a mission that all students must and will succeed in mathematics. She is certainly well educated and has the leverage to speak to such a topic. She graduated in 2003 with a Bachelor of Science degree in Business Administration with a minor in economics. In 2008, attained her master's in Business Administration, and in 2011 received her master's in Education. She has been awarded Teacher of the Year consecutively in 2006, 7, 11, and 12. In fact, with her recent enthusiastic teaching approach and style, she's also been awarded the Titan Transformer Award in 2013 and 2014 for exemplary teaching. She has data-driven instructional strategies and paperless classroom techniques infused in her daily classroom routines. And she has a total of 14 plus years of high school teaching experience within the public school and university arena. She has also held many instructional workshops for teachers and coaching effective teaching strategies and classroom techniques. But I want to say, deeper than all of that, I consider her a friend and a colleague and someone who is about the liberation of oppressed and marginalized people. And that is why she committed to doing this workshop to uplift the masses through what she has studied as a math educator and as a wonderful online teacher. And she is a master of the virtual world, and we are in for a treat. I present to you Catherine Lewis.
Thank you. That was extremely nice and kind of you. Welcome, everyone, and hello. I'm Catherine Lewis. I am an educator over in Alexandria, Virginia, and I've been there for the last, let's say, 12 years. But adding to the whole experience of teaching, I've always tried to make sure that my students received information and received the structured curriculum based upon their different learning styles. I initially started out as a special educator. I was a special educator for over 15 years, where I had to accommodate each and every student in my class. And many times you have multiple different types of students with multiple different disabilities and multiple different types of learning styles. So that gave me the challenge every day to try and meet the needs of every single student in my class. And I also used to incorporate a lot of technology inside of my lessons. So when it came down to COVID and virtual learning, I had a little bit of a head start, I believe, myself as far as teaching and getting instruction out there. So when we start talking about parenting during this time, I know a lot of parents were bombarded with a lot of different tasks that you had to perform, and making sure that your student is learning and at the same time making sure your student is engaged. So I want to talk about some key things that I use inside my household, because I do have a third grader and I have a daughter also who's a senior in college. But I also use techniques to deal with her and her learning, because she's also virtually learning also. So I try to break it down to 5 things, right? Because the top 5 things that I try to make sure that I address every single day that makes my life so much easier, even as a teacher and a parent, is structure, organization, time management, and a merit-based system that I infuse with my third grader, and also making sure that her learning environment is conducive to learning. So let's backtrack, because I talked about those things, but I want to break down like clearly and concisely what I do for every single item that I spoke about earlier on a daily basis. So let's start off with in the morning, and let's start off with our routine with our children. Because we're at home, some kids believe that they don't have to get out of the bed, brush their teeth, do certain things. Oh, I can just roll over and grab my computer and I'm in class. As parents, we have to make sure, I don't care if the student is in kindergarten or if the student is in the 12th grade, we have to make sure that our children are having a proper learning environment set up in the home that is quiet and it is away from distractions. We may not think that it's a necessity, but it is, because when we go to work, we need a structured place for us to work and a quiet place for us to complete tasks. So having a workstation set up in the room for your kid, out of their bedroom specifically, that's what I prefer. But if you don't have the space, because some people have multiple kids, just making sure if it is a corner in your student's room, that it is conducive to learning, meaning that the PlayStation is not right there. The Xbox is not close by, a TV isn't right above their heads. So we have to make sure that they are in an environment where they have a desk, where there's proper lighting. And then when you start talking about adding certain things to get them excited about learning, how about a new comfy chair, right? For young girls, like maybe they want a chair, maybe if they're like maybe 8 or 7 or 8 years old, maybe you can get them the LOL dolls cover for the chair, or something that helps them become more comfortable with their learning environment, because they're going to be sitting in that chair for numerous hours during the day. Maybe sprucing up the area with a ring light. With a tripod, and they cost about $20 at Walmart. You can get one of those ring lights just to make them feel like they're important and special when they're in class. One of my girlfriends, she have a microphone with the ring light set up for her daughter that sits on the desk, so her daughter feels like she's vlogging while she's in class. So little things that you can do to help the environment. And I also have a slide prepared where I can show like different types of pictures and visuals for parents. We can do that later. If you would like to see like different ways you can set up in-room classroom or desk setup for your child. So moving on from the conducive environment, and you all can jump in, as I go on, even if I'm talking too much and, I need to slow down.
No, we appreciate the pacing, and I think that's how we're going to bill it, as sort of the top 5, because I heard you mention 5 things, so we'll bill it as the top 5 things parents need to be aware of during virtual learning, because these are things that are also just good for even homework and all of those things when they're working at home, even once we transition back to school.
Yeah.
So this is going to be excellent either way.
I just want to make a quick comment about the environment. Tuesday, I had a student, I was trying to do a middle of the year assessment with her, and she was under the table, like under like a coffee table, and like listening to like a TV that was so loud. So I had to stop the assessment, and I was like, hey, we can't go on like this. Like, I'm not hearing you, you're not hearing me, like we gotta stop. So she was just like, all right. So she got from under the table and she went to a quieter space. And sometimes for us, it's just asking them. And like you mentioned, sometimes they may not have that, but if they do, they can go there and it makes the instruction and the learning so much more easier.
Yeah.
'Cause she was, like right up under the TV. And I'm like, girl, what's going on over there? Like, you're having a party? Like, we in like 11 o'clock in the morning and trying to do a test. And she over there listening to TV, having a good old time. I'm like, listen, even
Yeah.
though you're at home and you're in your pajamas, this is still school and we're still learning. So that environment piece is really important.
Yes, it's really important. It's like the foundation to whether or not your child was successfully retain or even receive information. Like I owned a tutoring company and I have had to have courageous conversations with parents. Like I cannot tutor your child efficiently if you have the TV blaring and I can hear your conversations in the background. And sometimes, we don't know that we're actually doing that, but as parents and adults, we really need to take a step back and look at how we may be treating our investments, which is our kids. Like this is something that's extremely important, and we're raising these children to be successful. But if your kid is not an auditory learner, the TV and you having a conversation in the background, that's not going to work for your student. So we have to make sure that the environment, and I know everybody has a different budget, but we have to make sure that that is taken care of.
Hello.
Hi,
Hi,
how are you?
this is Milton. I just wanted to say I definitely agree. I know that when we set up Jeremiah's his actual classroom space, we basically had to sacrifice another room, of course, because I already knew that it was going to be a virtual type of establishment. So, and that was important. But one of the things too, I think we also have to be mindful because I'm not always able to work at home, but even when I'm at home, we typically work as far apart as we can. He's in one total different room. I'm in the dining room, which is a little bit further, but I tend to talk loud. And so I can be on my own Zoom meetings and he'll come out of his space and be like, "Ma, I need you to be quiet. I can hear you. I can hear you." So we do have to be mindful, of that may have multiple people working in the same house.
Right.
So that's important. The other thing is I put encouraging just kind of words like, "You're great, have an awesome day, proud of you." I think I found them at like the dollar store or even Staples, and I kind of helped decorate his area with that. And just so that he has everything there. I did add, a recliner because they get a screen, what is it they call a screen break, where they can get up and get away from the screen for a couple of minutes. So just so that he doesn't stray too far away from his working area, he can still get out of that chair, because I know what it's like to have to sit in an office chair all day also, but to get out that chair and be able to kind of relax for those 5 minutes, I think it's important. So I definitely agree, like that's the key. Unfortunately though, also with boys, they get real antsy. So trying to keep them focused is probably another thing. So that's probably where I can need help at, because I find that I've never seen this child take so many bathroom breaks in my life.
Yes. And you know what can help? Because my daughter, like I said, she's 8 and she's in the 3rd grade and she does the same thing. She's consistently like getting up, walking around. So what I did for her, which was something that helped, was go and get those. You can buy the containers of slime. They're like really cheap. And sometimes it's $1, depending on what store you go to. Or some type of stress ball, or even the wiki sticks that they have, or pipe cleaners that they have at not Walmart, Home Depot. So you can find something that they can consistently like play with, or something that's tactile so they can release some of that energy that they have instead of walking around. So I noticed that cut my daughter's walk time, or getting up or looking at something out the window. That cut that time down by 50%. I sat there and I just observed her once she had those little fidgets, something for her to mess with or play with in her hand. So, or even some Velcro strips. You can put them on a corner or underneath the desk, and they can just rub on them. And I know sometimes, I might be talking about my students that had severe disabilities or moderate disabilities, but that helps a regular person. So just little simple things like that you can add to the environment will help a little bit, I don't know how to work with high schooler though. Anybody else before I move on? Okay, so in adding, I'm glad that Ms. Milton stated that about having some type of incentives, because I was going to move right into that, where you have to make sure that you are incorporating a time of debriefing with your student every single day. This helped me because I am not able, by teaching my classes during the day also, and I have her stationed in her room and she's doing certain things. So I'm in between classes, going to her computer, making sure that she's okay, sitting in on her classes. But at the end of the day, you should have a conversation with your kid, and outside of how was your day, right? Because they always say, oh, it was good. Oh, it was okay. So just have a conversation, and during that time, make them show you their organizational to-do list. So I give my daughter a to-do list. I got it from the Dollar Tree. It was just a little pamphlet, some paper, and it had to-do list on it. And she would write down after every class, like her homework assignments, even though they posted on Canvas or Google Classroom, she had to write it down. And I'm trying to make her responsible and showing her the task of executive functioning, which is writing things down. And use that debriefing time. Maybe it can be 5 minutes that you sit and talk with your kid, or maybe it can be an hour. Just sit and talk with your children about the experience that they're having, because this is something that's new. They are resilient, because children are always resilient, but they're adjusting at the same time. So if your student sees that they are, that you are involved in their education even more than when they are in school, because when we were in school, everybody was going this way and that way because everybody had their own responsibilities outside of the house. But now, since we're there, we can have these conversations with our students every single day. Try and make it possible where you sit and talk to your student about what happened during the course of the day. You'll be surprised to understand and hear the things that they say and how they talk about their other classmates and in their learning environments and what they're observing. So with the organizational piece, I just want to say that talking and communication is important, making sure that their desks and their learning environment is set up properly, and have little bells and whistles there so that can help them. Also, for young students, have a routine set up. I put 5 classroom virtual learning rules up on the wall, and I have just 5. Ask for snacks. You can't just go and run into the cabinet and then run back to the screen. I want to make sure that and have the students like participate in creating their own rules like during the day, because that gives them ownership in something that they know that they are supposed to do. So having screen time limited, maybe you can have a rule up there where one of your kids say, hey, I'm not going to have my cell phone on my desk while I'm learning. So that can be another rule. So make sure you set at least 5 rules where your students can actually abide by every single day and gain ownership in their learning. because they will tell you, oh, well, if I reach for my phone and I start texting somebody, you're missing lessons and instructions. So making sure that no distractions are in place. So they should not have a cell phone on their desk. They should not have a TV blaring or even on in the room. I would unplug the TV. But it's certain things that you just have to make sure that's in place, because if it's not mimicking what we do in school, then that's going to hurt your student also. So we won't be like this forever, hopefully. But once we go back, they're going to have to transition back into that. And a lot of students are opting to be at home more than they are opting to go back into the building. So setting that up, that organizational piece, talking to your kids. And the last thing I want to talk about is communication. Parents, is very important for you to communicate with your child's teacher at this time. I communicate with my child's teacher every week, and I try not to be a helicopter parent, but I want to talk because I need to make sure that my child, I'm seeing the same thing that they're seeing, because we can still be surprised during these times. We were like, well, how are you feeling this class when you're sitting at home? And a lot of times we may think that it's easy, but it's not. So having the teacher communicate with you on a daily basis or a weekly basis or bi-weekly basis or monthly basis, make sure you create that relationship, because teachers right now, we're learning, you're learning, the kid is learning. So building those relationships are extremely important, because we can get lost in this. And if we have one breakdown, then the whole system can mess up, especially if your kid was struggling before this pandemic happened. So extra talking, nice desk space, conducive learning, no distractions, organizational charts set up, maybe some anchor charts. And also make sure that you have an area where I post all of the teacher emails. So this is also a time to teach your teenager or middle schooler how to compose a proper email, and talk to them about the tone in which they email their teachers. Talk to them about how to structure email. Do some practice emailing with your kid. So all of these things will help your student be successful. And I have a list of all of the things that I just talked about on a Word document, and I can share it with you all, give you the link to it in the chat in a little bit, with visuals too. So.
Oh, please do. We want to make sure we provide the public with all the tools when they watch this virtually.
Ms. Lewis, do you have the option to share your screen?
Yeah, let's see.
I'm trying to.
Yes, I do have a share screen.
Okay, so you can go ahead and share those visuals you were talking about earlier.
Okay.
And then we can go to
questions. Oh no, it's saying it's disabled.
Oh yeah. Okay. Let me try this. All right. While I'm working on this, we can start the question and answer, the Q&A. So you left off on communication with the teachers. So my question is, as a parent and as an educator, what is your preferred method of communicating with your scholars, teachers?
My preferred method is email. A lot of the teachers now, they have these Google Voice numbers. I think that's great, but if your child's teacher does not have Google Voice number, then emailing is appropriate. I love when I receive emails from parents talking about their kids' learning style. And that's something else that I wanted to touch base on, because a lot of parents, we don't know how our kids learn. So virtual learning may be a challenge for Johnny if Johnny is a kinesthetic learner. He's hands-on with everything. So as parents, if we know that your kid is running around the house underneath the coffee table, like you mentioned about that one student, try and talk with the teacher to make sure that the teacher knows that your kid is a kinesthetic learner. And at the same time, maybe your child's teacher will enable you with different projects that maybe will assist you at home with different concepts that they're learning. So if they're learning about precipitation, maybe the teacher can email you a specific project to do to make rain clouds out of shaving cream and water and different colors. Things like that, different things, sand or what have you, to enhance the instruction that the teacher is delivering. So communication, I say email, but other parents may like phone calls or Zoom conferences.
I normally send messages also through, what is it? What's it, Dojo? What is that thing?
Dojo.
Yeah, Class Dojo. Yeah, because I have all of their, information saved there. So, and they tend to quickly respond that way, and it just becomes a little bit more convenient. But depending on what the situation is, then I may have to do like an email. It just depends on, what I need or what I'm looking for.
Yep, that's important. Yep. So, and Remind, it's a lot of apps. Just ask the teachers, like, what way do they communicate with the students offline? So you'd be surprised, like Class Dojo, like Ms. Milton said, and I know it's another one. It's Remind, and I forgot the name of it, but a lot of teachers use various different outlets. Some of them even have social media pages where the kids actually send direct messages, like they have class pages on Instagram or Twitter or what have you. But
yeah, at our school we use Class Dojo, the Remind app. So starting out in the school year, I would email parents and they would say they didn't get it and such and such. So, and this is the long way, but I text each parent individually and make sure that they got it. And sometimes it takes a follow-up call for some parents, because parents have lives too. Like, and those who have like more than one child, they got to keep up with so many teachers.
yeah,
So I found it when you talked about the relationship piece with the parent and the teacher, like calling and texting and making sure they just got it helps as well too.
that's right. Yeah. And also, I'll drop a link in the chat where parents can actually take a quick, I think it's 30 questions, where they can find out what their kids' learning style is, because you might not know just by observation. So once you learn what your child's learning style is, then you can do more things to enhance their learning and to help them be successful.
Okay. So Brother Burton is working on giving you the ability to share your screen.
Okay, no problem.
Still do that. We'll open it up for you guys to ask more questions to Ms. Lewis.
Ms. Lewis, I have a question. I came on a little bit late, apologize for tardiness, but you may have covered some of it. And I know a lot of your discussion has been about how, we can support our scholars. What resources or even advice do you have for parents who are just trying to balance it all? Because especially if you're still working, I find it very difficult, as much as I want to be hands-on, as much as I want to be more involved. So I'm not gonna lie, it drains me sometimes trying to keep up with everything. And sometimes I'd be thinking I'm failing a little bit because I may miss something, or I may feel like I'm not as engaged. But it does require a lot more. So are there any other type of resources where, like, or what suggestions you may have that will help, working parents, especially working parents that are still working outside and in the office versus being at home?